session is very cool and easy. It's all about learning. And in learning, we know the more energy you bring yourself up to the screen, the more learning you will absorb. By the way, Nitay-Yair was actually the world champion last year, 2021. He was placed second in a world championship of public speaking. Professionally, he was a corporate lawyer, and now he is all over the industry to make our society a better place. Want to know more about him? Definitely. That's why you are here. And I'm super delighted now to pass the stage to our super special guest all the way from Sydney, Australia, Nitay-Yair. Lovey. Woo!
Thank you very, very much, Patricia. I mean, after an introduction like this, I can rest in peace and be happy for the rest of my life. Before I start, if you are able to turn your camera, I would absolutely love to see you. You don't have to, but if your camera is off and you're able to turn it, please turn it on. And I would love to see you. Thank you for AJ, for example. All right, let's start. So I have 30 minutes and I'm going to try and condense about an hour workshop into 30 minutes because I want you to see a different part of public speaking. And let's start with a story. There was this student, an art student, who always admired his master because his master, every time he painted a painting, it was a masterpiece. Everyone would admire that painting and it will be in museums and it will be the greatest art ever produced. And that student looked at his master and he said, "Master, how every time that you are painting, you create a masterpiece? Teach me, I want to be like you." And the master said to the student, "Oh, this is what you need to do to paint masterpieces. You take your right hand and you learn how to paint with all the type of brushes in this world. And once you master all the brushes in the world, I want you to master all the colors in the world. And once you mastered all the brushes and all the painting with your right hand, that's how you create masterpieces." So the student looked at the master and said, "Hold on a second. So all I need to do is to master all the paint and master all the brushes, and I can create masterpieces just like you?" And the master said, "Oh, no, 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 no. You take everything you learned how to paint with your right hand, you throw it out of the window, and you start painting with your left hand. That's how you create masterpieces." Now, what does this story have to do with public speaking? The truth? Everything. What I want you to have the ability to do by the end of this workshop is to speak with your left hand. But what does it mean to speak with the right hand? Let me ask you a question. In public speaking, what is the foundations of public speaking? What do we need to study in order to be able to be good public speaking? For example, vocal variety. What else? Type in the chat. What other foundations do we have in public speaking, which is equivalent of mastering the paintbrushes or the paint? Type in the chat. What's the foundations of body language? Great. Yeah. Anyone else? What's the foundations? Speech structure. Fantastic. Emotion. Amazing. One more and then I'll move on. Come on. Message, eye contact, vocal, know your audience. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Flexibility of movement. All of those are learning to use with your right hand all the brushes and all the paints. But what makes a speech a masterpiece? That's when you start painting or speaking rather with your left hand. So what's the purpose of the workshop today? Only one thing. Today, you're not going to learn about speech structure. You're not going to learn about vocal variety. You're not going to learn on use of words or good language or audience, know your audience. There's a lot of information on it already. Today, you're going to learn how to adopt a mindset. And that mindset will shift you as a speaker from speaking with your right hand to speaking with your left hand. It will make you a public speaking artist, not just a public speaking. All right, how are we going to do this today? Two things. First of all, I'm going to share with you what does it mean to be an artist of public speaking. What does it mean to have this mindset of an artist as opposed to just a speaker? The second thing, or a second part of this workshop, I will share with you my journey of trying to be an artist rather than just a public speaker. And that will help you see all of that come together, and hopefully you can have the same mindset by the end of it. So what does it mean to be an artist of public speaking? It means we must always evolve and innovate. Write it down. This is very important. Evolve and innovate. Evolve and innovate. What does it mean to evolve and innovate, especially when it comes to public speaking? Evolve and innovate. Well, if you look at history, public speakers always had to evolve and innovate. About 1,000 years ago, when someone was a public speaker, what did he do? He stood on a big rock and he yelled his speech so the 100 people around him could hear him. Raise your hand if you think that's true. 1,000 years ago, we stand on a rock and we go, "Hello, everyone, nice to see you." But then something incredible happened. They invented the microphone. Evolve and innovate. And now as a speaker, there's not only 100 people that can hear us, there can be 1,000. So we stood next to this big microphone and we say, "Hello, everyone, pleasure to be here." And they could hear you whisper. And then they invented a microphone you can hold in your hand. And as a speaker, you evolved and innovated. You started to move on the stage. And then you had a lapel and you started to use gesture. Every time we evolve and innovate. And right now, we're experiencing the biggest shift in evolve and innovate as a public speaker, because we're moving from stage to this world where I'm speaking to you now, which is virtual world. Evolve and innovate. Now, let me ask you a question. Raise your hand if you know what the World Championship of Public Speaking is. Raise your hand if you know what the World Championship of Public Speaking is. I don't see too many hands, so you don't know what, oh, here we go, the hands goes up, good. So even in the World Championship of Public Speaking, we saw speakers evolve and innovate, and each one of them is an artist of public speaking. Let me give you a number of examples and then we'll move on. In 1978, does anyone know what happened in 1978? In the World Championship of Public Speaking, a person named Michael Ang did the unheard of. He moved away from the lectern and he started walking on the stage. And that was the first time anyone did it in the World Championship of Public Speaking. And people say, this is crazy. But is it? Today we all walk on stage. Mark Brown in 1995 was singing songs on stage, but that's not public speaking. But today it's common to have that. David Henderson in 2010 wore a costume, a doctor costume. Back then it was out of crazy, but today we see costumes as part of the speaking. Each one of those speakers evolved and innovate. So what does it mean to evolve and innovate for you? And what does it have to do with an artist mindset? This is very important. It means that you, as an artist of public speaking, once you learn the foundations, need to put them down and look elsewhere to see who else utilize tools that you can bring into public speaking, so we can evolve and we can innovate the art of public speaking. Let me try and make some sense in this for you. Let's explore 3 ways an artist, we looked at some of the foundations that we have in public speaking and see how he can learn or she can learn from a different art and bring it to public speaking. Let me explain. Raise your hand if you ever written a speech before. All the hands should be up, right? Yeah. Now, we usually look at speeches and we have an opening, 3 points, and a conclusion. Usually that's what we see in Toastmasters. But if we put an artist mindset, if we start speaking with our left hand, who else write? Who else can we learn from? Type in the chat. Who else write and have tools of writing that we can go to that art form and borrow tools from them? Write in the chat. What other art? Poets, fantastic. Who else? And as you type in the chat, I will just explain on poets because that's very important. Poets write with rhythm. And when we speak for the ear. So we can learn a lot from poems in terms of how to write movie scripts, fantastic. Characters, hero journey, authors, songwriters, theater, anyone who writes, White House correspondents, storytellers, all of this is correct answers. For example, with the artist mindset, when we have writing a speech, let's have a look at what other art forms do and see whether it's relevant to us. Not all of them will be relevant, but a lot of them would. Now, let's go to another right hand speaking. Raise your hand if you heard of vocal variety. Yeah, hands up. All of them should be up, right? Vocal variety. Now, usually when we stand on the stage in Toastmasters environment, we think we need to speak loud, but maybe a bit lower when we speak, right? But vocal variety is a whole art. Who else, what other art form can we look at and say, hey, we can learn from vocal variety? Who else uses voice? Singers, actors, correct, music, rhythm of the speech. So when we look at vocal variety, we can look at singing and see what can we learn from there. And I will share some tools with you later on today in terms of how singers breathe, because that's so important for our vocal variety. And remember, with the current technology, we can whisper and people hear us. So we can use it. 1,000 years ago, we couldn't do it. So you're starting to get the idea, the mindset of, say, writing and vocal variety. We can look at other art forms and bring it to public speaking. So we evolve and innovate. Now, here is my favorite, gestures. Who did gestures while speaking? Raise your hand. All of us did, right? But most of the time we see gestures like this. They're very robotic and not very cohesive and not very natural. But who moves on stage very naturally? That's a hint. Type in the chat, who is the best in movement on stage? Dancer, that's correct, Yan. Dancers, choreographs, dancers. Oh, but what does it have to do with public speaking? Any guesses? What does dancing have to do with public speaking? And gestures. This is a tough question. I'll give you 10 seconds and then I will show you a video. Flexibility. Let's explore something. I'm going to share a video with you and I need to make sure that the sound is there. Now, just give me a sign that you can see this. Anyone just raise your hand that you can see this? Yeah, okay. So this is a scene from Swan Lake. I won't go to the details, it's on the internet. And this scene in particular, it's called The Dying Swan. Yeah. So this character is now dying. Yeah. And I want you, it's a swan that dies, and she's obviously a ballet dancer. And I want you to see how she moves her hands, right? Her hands. And then I'm going to ask you, what does this have to do with public speaking? Here we go. Artist mindset, pay attention to her hands. I'm only going to play 10 seconds or so. Ready? Here we go. Pay attention to her hands. Can you see the flap of the wings? Yeah, here we go. And now I want you to see how she finished the dance and how she bowed. Here we go. The dying swan. Now, if I would see it without the introduction, I'll go like, what does this have to do with public speaking? Any guesses? Movement, balance. Anyone else? Now, I'm going to share with you another video. Character embodiment. That's actually a fantastic comment, Cheryl. Character embodiment, grace, communication. She is communicating emotions through dance without even saying one word. Without even saying one word. But let's see how this translates to public speaking. In 2008, there was a speaker named Lashonda Randall, and she won the World Championship of Public Speaking. Number one, what a lot of people don't know is that Lashonda Randall was very sick when she competed. In fact, in the 4 months preceding to the finals, she was dying. And a year later, after the contest, she is no longer with us. This was one of the last speeches she gave on the world stage. And I'm not going to play the whole thing for you, but I'm only going to play the end, the last 20 or 30 or so seconds. I want you to have a look at her hands, and I want you to write in the chat whether you can see the similarities between her movements and the dying swan movements. Now, did she study it from the dying swan? I don't know. But as an artist mindset, I see a lot of similarities. Here we go. Get ready. Lashonda Randall, 2008. She's the world champion. And I want you to focus particularly on her hands. This is the closing part of her speech. And remember, she is physically dying. Not in the speech, in reality. Here we go.
Are you standing there afraid? Or will you let the love in your heart tell the world what truly, truly matters?
Focus on the hands.
The words that used to scare me so as a child now bring me comfort because I know this much. Some glad morning when this life is over.
You saw the wings. Now I want you to see how she ends the speech, and especially the bow at the end, and whether you can see similarities with the dying swan. It's never one-to-one, but have a look at the flow.
My mom can't save me today, but she said she'd be delighted if you would do it for her, Chairman Schmidt.
I think that's one of the most beautiful speeches that were delivered in the World Championship of Public Speaking. Now, the point I'm driving is this, and I hope you see the similarities between her gestures and movement and the way she ends the speech, and in this case, the dying swan. The point is this: when we look at an area to improve in our public speaking journey, it's not enough to speak with our right hand, with the foundations that we have. We must put them down. We must look at other art forms and say, what can I bring from these art forms to public speaking? And today we only covered 3, and there's 1,000. We covered writing. Let's have a look what writers do. Let's have a look at vocal variety. How does singers breathe? And gestures, I just showed you an example of dance and how it applies to public speaking. Communication is the key. Now, before I go to my journey, which is the second part of this presentation, and sharing with you how I tried to adopt that artist mindset, I need you to prepare you for one thing. If you choose to paint or to speak with your left hand, i.e. try to speak as an artist, not just as a public speaker, one thing will happen, and it will consistently happen, and you need to be ready for it. You will fail. And then you will fail some more. And then you will fail and fail and fail. And when you think you're done failing, you will fail. The lesson, if you want to have the artist mindset, is this: if you are not failing, you are not exploring. Let me repeat this. If you are not failing, you are not exploring. You're not pushing the boundaries. Embrace failure. Toastmasters is a wonderful environment to fail, because you get feedback and then you can do it again and again and again. And you might fail 99 times, but on the 100th time, you will speak with your left hand and you will create a masterpiece. Be comfortable with failure. Now, how am I so sure about failure? Oh God, because I have PhD in failing. And I'm going to show you some of my failures right now in trying to explore a journey of becoming an artist of public speaking. So let's start with my journey and how I try and adopt the artist mindset, not always successfully, as you will see today, but that's the mindset you need to adopt to create masterpieces. But let me ask you this, type in the chat, what's the biggest change that happened in Toastmasters from 2019 to 2020 and today? What's the biggest change? Online, spot on, Patsy. Online. And what's the most difficult part for us as speakers to do online, right? The most biggest challenging is to engage the audience. Do you know why? Try and type it in the chat. Why it is so hard to engage audience online? I'm going to show you now. Oh yeah, I'm going to have some lunch now. What? I'm just listening to this Toastmasters thing. What? Yeah, come on, we all did it. Some of you are doing it right now. Raise your hand if you shut the camera off one time, listen to the background and did other stuff. We all do it, right? It's very hard. We're not focused. The dog, the cat, the tea, whatever it is, right? So we as speakers have to engage the audience even more. Now, when I started the journey going to online, I used the tools that I had in stage and brought it to the online world, but they don't work because the environment is different. I was standing on a rock yelling my speech like in the Roman days, when really now we have a microphone, a lapel, and I can move on the stage. That's the analogy that I have. So let's explore it a little bit more. So when I did speeches online, I realized that the audience were not engaged. And then I went on the journey of asking why. So if I apply the artist mindset and type it in the chat, who else uses this screen? What other art forms uses this screen to have you, the audience, and me included, engaged and not move from the screen? For 2 hours, you sit there and you go, not now, I'm watching this. What other art forms use it? Newsreaders. Who else? Who, you look at this screen for 2 hours, drama. What else? Who else uses the screen? Movies. Raise your hand if you watched a movie for an hour and did not move from the screen. We all have, right? So why, when I speak for 7.5 minutes, people do this, but when movies are going for 1 hour, no one moves? And then I did a bit of research, and I'm going to show you. A video, and this video is from 1929. Right now, it's in black and white. Please don't get bored. Don't leave. It's very boring. But what it is, it's the length of the shot that you're going to see. You're going to see 4 people sitting on the table. Let's see how often the camera moves.
At home cured me.
So funny, right? Not.
Why, you can no more live without lying than you can do business without deception. It's the way we're...
Raise your hand if this is boring. Yeah, come on, I want to see hands. This is boring.
brought up. Parents tell their children Santa Claus comes down the chimney.
So if you notice, in 1929, when we look at the art of movies, because I had to research it, in the early days, the camera didn't move.
And a steam-heated flat. You meet your friend Brown in the morning.
Okay, this is boring. You get the idea. The camera doesn't move, and you just want to fall asleep. And again, what we're doing here, we're saying who else uses this screen and engage audience best, because how can we adopt it to our own speaking? And that example is the black and white movie. So over 100 years, movies have evolved. And if in the 1929, the screen didn't move and it was boring, let's see what happens nearly 100 years later. Not 100 years, in 2008, whatever time it goes. Are you ready for this? And I want you to tell me in the chat, what's the difference between this and the 1929 movie? Don't fall off your chair. Here we go. I dare you to count how many times the camera changes. Here we go. You get the idea. The idea is that movies have evolved in the last whatever many years, and they change. The number of scenes you have on the screen change, and it's called dopamine dump. Dopamine dump, and you're engaged in the movie. Now, what does this have to do with public speaking or my journey in public speaking? Remember, we said we moved to the virtual world, right? From in 2019 to 2020. And I'm going to show you my journey, right? I'm going to show you a speech that I've done on stage, and I'm not going to show you the whole speech. All I'm going to show you is how I moved from one age to another. And what I've done on the stage is just say, when I was this, and I pointed toward the age. It wasn't a great transition, but this is what I have recorded. And no one said anything. It was the accepted way of doing it. It will take 2 seconds. I'm moving to the age of 17. Yeah. And this is just on stage.
Laughing. I didn't know that. When I was 17, I had a serious adult problem.
Not the best transition, but on stage, no one really said anything. It was quite accepted. Now, when I competed online for the first time, I used the tools that I developed on the stage, and I used it in the virtual world. Raise your hand if you think I failed. Yeah, you're gonna see my version of 1929 movie. I am using the wrong tools because I didn't have an artist mindset and say, who else uses this screen? Let's see how we can chop and change the screen and move. And I'm gonna show you a 1929 version of me, yeah? And please don't fall asleep. I should probably paint it in black and white. Do not fall asleep and do not laugh too loud, okay? Boring, boring failure. Ready? Here we go. Changing to 17. I'm just changing the age, and have a look how complete failure it is because I'm using the wrong tools.
But it didn't end there. When I was 17,
Doesn't it look like a 1929 movie? I just look like a tree. It doesn't move. Look.
I had a serious adult problem.
Still haven't moved.
I fell in love.
Okay, I'll stop this embarrassment. But I essentially stood there for 7.5 minutes delivering a speech in the middle. So I realized that something needed to change. I needed to create movement on the screen like movies do. But the disadvantage as an artist, we put that artist mindset that we have, the disadvantage that we have as speakers is that we can't actually cut the video. We're doing it live, right? Raise your hand if you've done a live speech. Yeah, we do the speeches live, so we can't edit it. So we're thinking, okay, what other art form uses changes on the screen the best way? And ladies and gentlemen, I never knew it existed. Welcome to the art of TikTok. TikTok. So I bumped into TikTok and I see my red light, and I'll try and do it very quick. And here is TikTok. And by the way, these are the real videos that I discovered as part of my journey. I'm going to show you this TikTok video, and I want you to see how they change. Remember how the camera was cutting on the Bond movie? Have a look how they do the camera here. There's a girl coming through, and I want you to see her hands, right? Here we go. Here she comes. Ooh. Obviously, this is edited what she was doing, but I thought, ooh, I wonder if I can replicate that in my speaking capability. And I had to evolve and innovate. So I went and explored, and I failed, and I failed, and I failed. And I don't have time now to show you all the failures because I'm already on red. I failed, and I failed, and I failed. But then at the 100th time of failures, the next time, I was able to get all of those art forms into one. You know, the changing of the movies, the way she uses the hands for transitions, even beatboxing to do a sound. And what I'm going to show you now again is the 3 videos, and then we'll conclude. I'll show you the 2 videos you just watched before. One is the transition on stage. The other one is the transition, the same transition that I moved to the stage to the virtual world, and then the way it evolved and innovated to an artist mindset. Let's do it quickly because I'm already on the way. Here we go. So this is the stage, right? This is the tools that we used on the stage.
Not only that I love him, but it didn't end there. When I was 17, I had a serious adult problem. I fell in love.
That's it. So that's the. So I'm just going to do this. Just tell me that you can see the next tab. Here you go. And that's now my version of 1929. Now I took it from the stage to the virtual world. Boring, 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 boring. Here we go. Failure. Look at this.
But it didn't end there. When I was 17, I had a serious adult problem.
You get the idea. So now, how does this
I
look like
fell in
when
love.
we, whoops, sorry. How does it look like when we take all of these art forms of TikTok, of movies, of cutting the screen, of doing movement and putting the artist mindset, not just the tools that we had on stage, we're looking elsewhere and bringing it all together. This is my version of 2008 Bond. I'm not as good looking as Bond, no strong as him, but that's my version. Here we go. Pay attention to 2 things, to the TikTok, to all of those art forms, but pay attention for the movement on the screen. While we can't cut the scene really, have a look at the movement.
Like my mom. But you know what's worse than getting her laugh? Getting her advice. Let's travel back in time. Ready? I'm 17.
So you saw the TikTok, right? That was a TikTok, inspired by TikTok. Have a look at the movement. There's a lot of movement, and that's for movies. Every 2.5 seconds, there's movement. Look.
I'm in love
Movement.
with blue eyes.
Movement.
But I'm too afraid to tell her.
Movement.
And my mom says,
Movement.
Son,
The screen is moving, right?
let me give you.
You can see the speech online. You get the idea. I'm just running out of time here, already run out of time. But the idea that I'm trying to drive to you is this. When you try and evolve as a public speaker, it's great to have all the foundations of speaking, each equivalent of speaking with your right hand. But to create masterpieces, you must throw it all out of the window, and you need to start speaking with your left hand. Evolve and innovate. And to do that, you need to look at other art forms and bring it to public speaking. The foundations of public speaking must be stable, but they must not stand still. Focus on exploring the art of public speaking, understanding the foundations, and then go outside of it and innovate. Look at other art forms. What other tools are there to engage the audience? Speak with your left hand, because if you do, you'll become not just a public speaker, but a public speaking artist. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Speak with your left hand so that you will become a public speaking artist. How beautiful. Thank you so much. To say I'm inspired is an understatement. And I'm sure all of us are very, very much open up our eyes to what the art of public speaking is. And if only we are able to use our left hand, that will be the moment we have that opportunity to explore into ourselves as a true masterpiece. Ladies and gentlemen, let's unmute ourselves if possible, and definitely give our guest speaker Nitay-Yair the loudest round of applause for this very, very innovative idea and definitely groundbreaking tips and thoughts on how we can bring our public speaking life to the next level. Thank you so much. Go ahead and type your feedback in the chat box. We definitely know a lot of you are inspired, even though some of you are not able to on your screen, but that is besides the point. Most importantly, apply what you have learned today. Have the courage to explore and to fail. Without failing, we will never become that best version of ourselves. With this, I'm so honored now to invite our frequently asked question master, Cheryl Tan, to take over the control. Let's give our hands to our FAQ, Cheryl Tan. Take it away.
Thank you, Pat. Hi, Nitai. Good to see you again.
Hello. Good to see you again.
So we have 4 minutes to go through 3 questions. Let's start with the first one. What are your top 3? Maybe just one then. What is your top motivation factor for success?
What is the top 3 motivation factor for success? Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
There's really only one, yeah? And you need to be passionate about what you do. And if you're passionate what you do, success will come. If you do something to succeed, you will fail. If you do something because you enjoy it and you're passionate about it, you will succeed. Simple, but not easy.
Oh, got it. Passion. Question 2. What is your toughest lesson since you became a Toastmaster?
Oof, this is a very sensitive question, but I'm going to be vulnerable with you and I'm going to tell you the truth. At the beginning of my journey, when I learned how to paint with my right hand, learning the foundations, I Googled a lot of speakers and I watched it online. And I tried to imitate speakers. I would speak like this and just, but I don't speak like that. I have a funny voice and a funny laugh and my gestures are awkward. And it was the biggest challenge was to be me, the real me, and not try and pretend to be someone else. And sometimes it's confronting. It's not that easy as it sounds in front of an audience. So the biggest challenge was to be me.
I think a lot of us can relate to that. Thank you, Nitai. Third question. How do you purposefully apply the art of public speaking as you prepare for your next speech? It could be a contest or a prepared speech.
I apologize. Can you repeat the first part of the question? I did not hear it well.
How do you purposefully apply the art of public speaking as you prepare for the next speech?
So for me, public speaking is not a task, right? For me, it's something I'm very passionate about. It's an expression of an art. And I don't just sit there for an hour and think about art or the art of public speaking. It's always there. You know, you go to walk in the park and you see the leaf fall through and you go, ooh, that invokes an emotion in me. And then you explore, why is this movement of the leaf invokes emotion in me? And how can I take it to public speaking? So it's not on purpose. It just every day, there's an art in everything that you do. Look around, someone hugs someone. You see your mother or your father, whatever emotion that it gives to you. And those emotions, that's how you prepare for your next speech. Because you take them and you process them and you translate them to a speech or to a message that resonates with an audience. Bit of a roundabout answer, but that's my answer.
No, that is so inspiring because now I'm going to be more mindful and observe other art forms and see how they can apply to public speaking. So, Nitai, I'm going to go for that PhD in failure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nitai. Back to you, Patricia.
Thank you so much. I'm already reading so many feedback in the chat box and it's so beautiful.